Today, we have a visceral new healing manga that's anything but peaceful. It follows the harrowing journey of Kim Zio, a man cursed with an immortal heart who endured decades of horrific vivisection at the hands of scientists. Buckle up, let's dive straight into the carnage. From the moment he entered this world, Zio was entombed in a pitch-black underground facility for 15 grueling years. Every single day, his reality was a relentless cycle of twisted experiments and systematic torture. Each procedure was designed to push his limits, leaving his muscles shredded and his bones pulverized into dust. But despite the unimaginable agony, death refused to claim him. His curse is known as the Immortal Heart, a biological anomaly that grants him instantaneous, infinite regeneration. The horrific price? His body has been withered down to a literal walking skeleton. Furthermore, the sheer pain of his flesh knitting back together only grows more excruciating with every recovery. No matter what monstrosity he had to become, he swore he would breach the walls of that subterranean hell. Zio hissed to himself, "I won't let these butchers cage me again." In a desperate gambit, he seized 2 high-voltage wires and fused them, detonating a massive arc of electricity. Zio gritted his teeth. "If I falter here, my life is forfeit anyway." As the surge incinerated both him and his pursuers, he embraced the void, preferring total annihilation over another day in a cage. It was a calculated suicide. After all, the resurrection heart beat within his chest. Since true death is an impossibility, Zio crawled from the wreckage as a charred, shambling corpse. He is a resurrector, a being that defies the natural order. In this society, there exist individuals born with extraordinary hearts. It is a genetic mutation that manifests in only a microscopic fraction of the global population. Depending on the nature of their heart, these individuals wield godlike, superhuman abilities. They are categorized as possessors of mutant hearts. Society idolizes these freaks of nature, hailing their powers as a divine blessing from the heavens. Zio, currently headfirst in a dumpster, let out a dry, hacking laugh as he scavenged for scraps. A blessing? What a sick joke. He was utterly revolted by his own existence. This wretched life was the only thing that heart had ever given him. Zio continued to claw through the refuse. "I need sustenance. The hunger is clawing at my sanity." His skeletal fingers suddenly closed around a discarded, stale crust of bread. Zio shoved it into his mouth, chewing desperately. At least it doesn't smell like rot. He paused, noticing a small, mangy dog nearby wagging its tail in anticipation. "Huh." Zio turned his hollow gaze toward it. "Are your ribs sticking out too? Want a piece?" The dog snatched the bread from his hand, and Zio gave it a rare, gentle pat. "Good lad." Suddenly, aggressive shouts echoed from the mouth of the alley. "Wait, don't let her slip away." Zio instantly tensed at the sound of human predators. He peered cautiously from his hiding spot. More lab hounds? Instead, he saw a pack of thugs cornering a trembling girl. "Move it. We just want to play for a bit. Why make this so difficult, princess?" Zio analyzed the scene with detached coldness. "Never mind. Just some low-life street vermin." Hyde pleaded, her voice trembling. "Please, we're just high schoolers." But the thugs only smirked. High schoolers know more than enough these days. Quit the act. It's getting pathetic. Zio's eyes locked onto the bag in Hyde's trembling hand. Dog food? She was out here feeding the strays? He stepped out from the shadows and let out a raspy, "Excuse me." Zio requested with a chilling calm, "Walk away. Now." The thugs whirled around, faces contorted in confusion. "The hell is this? Some cracked beggar?" Zio threw back his hood, revealing his sunken, skeletal visage. "I am no beggar." The sight of his ghastly face sent them into a collective state of hysteria. "What the?" The lead thug shrieked, frantically shoving Zio back as if he were a plague-ridden corpse. Zio's instincts took over, and he swung a discarded pipe with lethal precision. He snarled a final warning. "Stop your screeching and vanish before I lose my patience." The thugs were paralyzed by primal dread. They turned tail and bolted, screaming, "It's a vengeful ghost." Hyde, pale and trembling on the asphalt, managed to whisper, "My sincerest thanks." But as she looked up, Zio appeared like a ravenous demon descending upon her. Consequently, Hyde threw her hands up in a blind panic, screaming, "Get back! Stay away from me! Don't eat me!" However, a moment later, she froze in stunned silence as she watched the demon dive into the scattered dog food on the ground, devouring it with animalistic hunger. Hyde's brain stalled at the bizarre sight. "Huh," she called out, her fear replaced by sheer confusion. "Zio, stop. That's dog food." He froze, realizing his blunder, and turned with a sheepish rasp. "Oh, my mistake. I terrified you, didn't I? I apologize. But, may I have just a bit more?" Hyde's skin crawled, her terror intensifying with every passing second. She scrambled to her feet in a blind panic and bolted into the night, her screams echoing through the alley. Zio, still chewing, watched her silhouette vanish. "Figures. She's gone," he muttered, trying to numb the sting of rejection. "It's for the best. Now I can feast in solitude." Hyde peered from behind a concrete pillar, her mind reeling in sheer disbelief. What on earth is that creature? She shivered, her thoughts racing. Is he even human? Nothing that looks like a walking corpse should be breathing unless... The realization hit her like a lightning bolt. A mutant heart. She bit her lip, overcome with guilt. I've heard legends of those hearts granting impossible powers. He saved my life, and I treated him like a monster. Then, Hyde emerged from the shadows and approached Zio. She bowed low, her hands trembling as she extended a paper bag. "I'm so sorry. If you're starving, please. Take this instead. It's a real sandwich." Zio blinked in stunned silence. "You're offering this to a freak like me?" Hyde managed a fragile, apologetic smile. "Yes, please. I'm sorry for reacting so poorly before." He reached out tentatively, whispering, "No, it's all right. Thank you." Zio accepted the gift. Looking inside, a wave of emotion washed over him. This is the first time anyone has handed me a meal that wasn't scraps. He took a massive bite, a memory flickering in his mind. I've only ever seen these wrappers in the gutters. Suddenly, Zio's world exploded into color. This is absolute bliss. I never imagined a flavor could make my very soul tingle like this. The crunch of the vegetables, the soft bread, the savory meat. It's all so vivid. This is a taste worth dying for. To Zio's eyes, Hyde had transformed into a radiant angel descended from the heavens. She looked up at him, her voice soft and tentative. Well, how should I address you?" He replied with a hollow, raspy calm, "Zio. My name is Kim Zio." Hyde offered a warm, genuine smile. "It's a pleasure, Zio. I'm Song Hyde." Then, her curiosity got the better of her. "But how did you end up in such a state?" Zio didn't sugarcoat the truth. "I'm a fugitive from a research lab." The revelation left her breathless. "A laboratory? You mean you're being hunted like an animal?" Zio's gaze fell to the pavement. "Precisely. There's a facility that harvests mutant hearts. They want to drag me back to my cage." She whispered in horror. "I thought those were just dark urban legends. Is it all true? What did those monsters do to you?" Zio's eyes grew distant as he stared into the abyss of his past. "Where do I begin?" He began to recount the grisly details of his living interment. "I was a lab rat for 15 years. They pumped me full of lethal toxins to test antidotes and harvested my organs repeatedly to check for transplant durability." Hyde's face drained of color as she gasped. 15. 15 years of that. How could anyone survive such depravity? Zio delivered the chilling reality. "Because of my resurrection heart. It's a curse that knits my flesh back together, no matter how much they butcher me." He slumped his shoulders, a hint of shame in his voice. "That is why I've been reduced to this skeletal nightmare." Stung by his words, Hyde looked closely at Zio. He stood there, a broken figure cloaked in shadows and self-loathing. Suddenly, she grabbed his sleeve and declared, "Enough. Follow me." Zio stumbled, caught off guard by her sudden boldness. "Wait, where are we going?" Hyde gave him a determined look. "Just trust me for a minute." In that moment, Zio's heart did something it hadn't done in years. It soared. Her hand. She's actually touching me. Even looking like a monster, a girl is holding my hand without flinching, but grabbing me with such force will. With a sickening pop, his arm detached completely from his shoulder. Hyde shrieked in absolute horror, her face a mask of pure panic. She spun around, waving her arms frantically. "Oh my God, what have I done? Your arm. Your arm is on the ground." Zio picked up his limb and gestured for her to calm down. "Relax. It happens from time to time." He nonchalantly clicked the bone back into the socket. "If I align the marrow correctly, it snaps right back." Hyde clutched her chest, exhaling a breath of pure relief. "Thank the stars." Then Zio asked, "So what's the plan?" She hummed a playful tune. "Well, you'll see." A short while later, Zio stood stiffly in his new attire, feeling like an imposter. Hyde, laden with shopping bags, beamed. "Your old rags were falling apart. I figure with a wig and some decent clothes, you could finally blend in. It's not designer fashion, but it beats looking like a ghost." Zio was moved to tears. "Oh, it's perfect. Truly." He zipped up the jacket, feeling the unfamiliar comfort. "This warmth, it feels like it's seeping into my very bones. I can feel it even where my hair used to be. You're the best, Hyde." She stepped closer, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Hold on, I'm not finished with your makeover yet." He recoiled slightly, confused. "What now?" She laughed, pulling out a kit. "Your face is a dead giveaway. Since you lack ears, a mask is out, so I'm going to use heavy-duty makeup to camouflage the bone." Moments later, Hyde stood back, looking at her handiwork with a grimace. "I'm so sorry. Truly. It turns out applying foundation to a skull is harder than it looks." Zio hung his head, feeling self-conscious. "Is it that bad?" She felt a pang of guilt. "I don't even have a mirror to show you the damage. But on the bright side, those lab thugs wouldn't recognize you even if you ran right into them." After a heavy silence, Hyde noticed Zio's stillness and cautiously peeked through her fingers. Suddenly, she bolted upright in a frantic state. "Gah, look at the time. I'm going to be late for cram school." She scrambled away, waving back at him. "It was incredible meeting you, but I have to fly." Zio could only offer a bewildered stammer. "Oh, all right. Goodbye." Hyde's voice drifted back with a gentle warmth. "Don't forget to look after the dogs for me. Okay?" Tracking her silhouette until it vanished, he breathed her name like a sacred vow. Song Hyde. So that's her name. It wasn't until he collapsed into his makeshift bed that the weight of the interaction truly hit him. "Take care of the dogs." Does that imply she's returning tomorrow? Back in that hellish lab, he was merely a specimen, a beast in a cage. Every soul he'd encountered since his escape had fled in terror the moment they glimpsed his skeletal visage. She is the first person in my entire existence to look past the bone and treat me like a human being. He affectionately scratched the pup's ears. "I owe it all to you. If I hadn't followed you out of that hellhole, I never would have met her." "Thanks, partner." The dog responded by enthusiastically licking Zio's cheek. He looked into the dog's eyes and pondered. "You need a name, don't you? What do you think of? Potato?" Potato let out an approving bark, and Zio's face lit up. "You like it?" "Potato, that sandwich was a revelation. Hyde brought me clothes. She spoke to me. She's a literal angel. I can't wait for the sun to rise. If I stay right here, our paths will cross again tomorrow, won't they?" But in a heartbeat, Zio's joy vanished as he lurched into a sitting position. A cold surge of reality washed over him. What on earth am I thinking? I'm a hunted man. Am I truly selfish enough to drag Hyde, my only savior, into the crosshairs of those monsters? Zio scrambled to his feet and began to sprint. "I have to leave. Disappearing is the only way to keep her safe. I belong in the shadows, far away from her light." As the veil of night deepened, Zio pushed his withered body to the limit. The following dawn found Zio waking in a daze inside the cold belly of a drainage pipe. He lay huddled against a mound of refuse, using his new jacket as a meager shield against the world. Suddenly, he recoiled with a sharp cry of disgust. Gah! What was that? A rat? He shook his head, trying to clear the cobwebs. Did I really collapse from exhaustion? I can't afford to be this vulnerable. The silence of the tunnel was broken by the violent, hollow growl of his stomach. A small spark of pride flickered in his chest. Thank God for my instincts. I had the foresight to pocket some of that dog food. He began to gnaw on the dry kibble, closing his eyes tight. If I just focus hard enough on that sandwich, I can trick my brain. Green bits are the crunch of veggies. Yellow is the soft bread. Brown is the savory meat. It's basically a feast, right? Suddenly, a familiar rustle echoed through the pipe. Potato charged out of the darkness and snatched the pile of kibble right out of his hand. Zio wailed in comical despair, "No, my gourmet sandwich." He groaned, clutching his empty stomach. "Potato, you traitor. That was my only meal." But then the realization froze the blood in his veins. Wait a minute. He blinked. Potato? Here? He stared at the wagging tail in disbelief. How in the world did you track me down? If you're here, then that means. Right then, Hyde's voice rang out, vibrating through the pipe. Zio thought, maybe it's a blessing my face is just bone. Otherwise, she'd see me shaking. She marched up to him, her brow furrowed in annoyance. Don't you dare go missing without a word ever again. I've been scouring the city for you. Zio stood mesmerized. If I still had skin, the sheer radiance of my joy would be visible from space. Hyde continued her scolding, though her eyes softened. I searched every alleyway. Potato caught your scent and led me straight to this hole. She gave him a playful, exasperated look. You have no idea how long I've been wandering. Zio bowed his head. I'm so sorry. Hyde added worriedly. You're the one who warned me about how dangerous these streets are. He muttered sheepishly. I was terrified that being near me would only bring you ruin. Hyde simply brushed his concerns aside with a brilliant smile. Well, I'm just glad I found my favorite skeleton. This little guy was practically inconsolable without you. Potato lunged forward, showering Zio's face with licks. Moved to his core, Zio whispered Potato. Without missing a beat, Hyde began unloading a mountain of supplies. First things first, you're eating. She rummaged through her bag like a magician. You've had nothing but that one sandwich since yesterday. That's not a diet. That's a tragedy. I raided the convenience store. Look. She began pouring fresh milk over a bowl of chocolate cookies. Trust me, try this. Zio stared at the concoction in utter horror. What kind of sorcery is this? Soggy cookies drowning in milk. She winked confidently. It's a secret delicacy. He eyed the floating crumbs with extreme skepticism. Yesterday was a masterpiece, but this looks like a science experiment. He tentatively lifted a spoonful. Is this actually edible, or is my stomach in for a second round of torture? A second later, the sugary explosion hit his palate, and Zio was instantly moved to tears. It's so heavenly I can't stop the waterworks. I could die happy right this second. He erupted with pure joy. This is so delicious my mind is literally melting. Hyde, you have to taste this. Watching his chaotic reaction, Hyde giggled behind her palm. You're such a drama queen. All right, now wash it down with some Coke. Suddenly, a faint shimmer appeared as the bone on Zio's hand began to sprout. He marveled with wide eyes, my skeletal structure. It's actually regenerating. Hyde gasped, leaning in with wonder. Wait, for real? Where? She focused intently on a microscopic sliver of new bone taking shape. A thought flickered across her mind. Does your body always knit itself back together in such tiny increments? Won't it take an eternity to fully mend at this rate? Zio quickly shook his head, correcting her. No. He casually dropped a bombshell. It actually takes several years to recover a limb. This left Hyde paralyzed with shock. What? Years? Zio replied with a hollow stare. Yeah, because the process requires massive amounts of calories. She struggled to process it. Calories? Is there no other way to accelerate the healing? In the dark corners of his mind, he knew the answer. I just need to gorging myself on a massive quantity of blood. But that would terrify her. Best to leave that gruesome detail buried. So Zio simply offered. That savage method was only possible back in the lab. For now, normal food and water will have to suffice. Hyde continued to probe the mystery. The lab can actually heal you? Zio explained with chilling nonchalance, of course. They need me in peak condition for their next round of torture. He lowered his gaze, his voice dropping to a whisper. That's why they're so fanatical about hunting me. No matter how deep I bury myself, they're coming. Hyde's heart sank as the truth hit her. Is that why you tried to vanish into the night? Zio found his voice and confessed. Yes, being near me is a death sentence, Hyde. You don't need to waste your kindness on a walking target. Hyde's eyes flashed with determination. That's it. We'll go to the police right now. Zio slumped even further, his spirit broken. The police? They'll see a monster and pull the trigger before I can even open my mouth. But she reached out to steady him. Trust me, my sister is actually a high-ranking officer. Hyde leaned in to share her final secret. She's a mutant heart, Zio, just like you. Zio froze in shock. Your own sister is a mutant heart? She nodded firmly. Yes, she understands. Despite the hope, hesitation still clouded his eyes. Hyde saw his fear and sat beside him, offering a smile that could melt ice. Take a leap of faith for once. My sister is one of the good ones, I promise. This simple kindness made Zio's heart skip a beat. She crouched down to pet the strays. I have to get going. Stay safe, you guys. Be good, okay? The rescue center will be coming for you soon. Potato sat tall, his tail thumping against the pavement in a happy rhythm. As Hyde's footsteps faded, Zio reached out and ruffled Potato's fur. You saved me again, buddy. Thanks. He made a silent, steel-cold vow. I'm done running like a coward in the dark. I'll be back for you, Potato. With that, Zio sprinted after Hyde. This was the first time in 3 grueling years of life as a fugitive that a human hand had actually reached out to pull him from the abyss. It's a terrifyingly beautiful feeling, being protected for once. Could a creature like me truly live a life without a shadow chasing my heels? But just as the nightmare felt like it was ending, the roar of an engine shattered the peace as a car barreled toward them. Hyde gasped, frozen as the black sedan swerved toward the sidewalk. The impact was sickening. The car slammed into Zio, launching his frail body into the air like a rag doll. He spun through the air, his skull hitting the asphalt with a bone-jarring crack. Hyde's scream was cut short as a bald thug lunged out and seized her. Move! Bag the specimen before the witnesses start crawling out. A squad of armed mercenaries poured out of the black vehicles like a plague. They descended upon Zio's broken form to reclaim their property. A lighter flickered, igniting a cigarette in the cold air. The lead thug stepped forward, spitting on the ground. Found you at last, you pathetic walking bag of bones. He barked orders at his subordinates. Toss him in. He's going to bleed for every second of trouble he caused us. The black cars screeched away, tires smoking against the pavement. Zio wasn't even inside. He was lashed to a rope and dragged behind the lead vehicle. His flesh was mercilessly shredded against the abrasive road, his throat erupting in agonized, primal screams. Despair threatened to swallow him whole. Damn it, not like this. He frantically clawed his shattered fingers into the asphalt. I have to stop them. I have to break free. But the voice in his head grew louder. This is all my fault. I brought this hell upon her. Because I was selfish, Hyde is being dragged into the abyss. His fingernails were ripped from his hands, leaving a gruesome trail of blood marking his path of suffering. Still, the car showed no mercy, dragging Zio along. He gnashed his teeth in a fury, cursing his very existence. This worthless, pathetic power. I am useless. Someone, anyone please. At that desperate cry, a pack of strays burst from the shadows. They charged after the car with feral intensity, their teeth sinking into the rope that choked Zio's neck. He was struck with overwhelming awe. You guys, bolstered by the raw strength of the pack, Zio braced his weight until the rope snapped like a brittle twig. The captors inside the vehicles realized the tether had broken and slammed on the brakes, tires screeching against the asphalt. The black sedans swung around, converging on the scene instantly. The strays stood their ground, a chorus of feral barking erupting into the night. The thugs disembarked, their faces contorted with murderous fury. What kind of circus is this? They formed a menacing line and marched toward the fallen Zio. The leader, resting a dinnerbat on his shoulder, spat. Do these mangy mutts actually have a death wish? The dogs refused to flinch, continuing their defiant roar. Zio felt a wave of helpless, suffocating dread wash over him. No stop. The thugs unleashed their rage, swinging their weapons at the strays and shouting, "Where do you think you're going, you pests?" Witnessing the cruelty, Zio fought against the gravity of his injuries. I have to stand. These animals are bleeding in my place. I have to end this. They're being butchered. Potato lunged with savage desperation, sinking his teeth into a thug's thigh. Zio, trembling in the dirt, was struck by a sudden, gruesome realization. That's it. The blood. He whispered a dark vow. I must harvest the blood spilling from those bastards. Even a drop will jumpstart my regeneration. Zio fought through the haze of pain, hypnotizing his shattered limbs. Move, please. Just reach the crimson. The thug let out a guttural scream as arterial spray painted the cold pavement. The dog was brutally kicked aside. Zio pleaded in agony, just a little more, just enough to ignite the spark. But as he clawed his way forward, Potato collapsed into a widening pool of blood. Zio, that was paralyzed, his soul fracturing at the sight of the unmoving pup. A silent, agonizing scream tore through his mind, calling out for his only friend. The alley fell into a deathly silence as the other dogs went limp. Not a single tail wagged. Not a single breath remained in the pack. Zio's eyes darted between the still forms, whispering their names like a funeral dirge. Gong, Daiop, U, Elup, Guang Guang. His vision blurred with grief as 15 years of suppressed, agonizing trauma flooded his consciousness. I was a lab rat in that dungeon for 15 godforsaken years. Every time I woke up, it was the same hellish cycle of systematic butchery. Days bled into nights of forced injections, organ harvesting, and endless vivisection. A relentless loop of agony. I couldn't even escape into death's embrace. I crawled out of that abyss, thinking I had finally cheated fate. I dreamed of a sliver of happiness, but the world outside was just a different kind of monster. The normal people looked at me with nothing but disgust and loathing. They branded me a freak, a monster. Yet, beneath the bone and ash, a defiant red heart still pulsed. Zio, that realized he only felt a flicker of humanity because of these dogs and Hyde's kindness. They were the only ones who saw a man instead of specimen. Zio strained every nerve, telekinetically pulling the spilled blood toward his withered frame. Every crimson drop acted as fuel, stitching his ravaged cells back together. The blood surged toward him, answering his desperate call for life. A violent, crimson vortex erupted around him, swathing his skeleton in a storm of gore. Feet manifested from the ether, and his shattered arms were forged anew with terrifying speed. His skeletal hands were encased in fresh muscle and skin, returning to their original form. As the bloody cyclone dissipated, a complete human figure stood amidst the carnage. The hollow skull was gone. Zio's true, handsome face had returned from the grave. His entire anatomy was flawlessly restored. Zio stared at his own reflection in a puddle, gasping my body. It's finally whole. He gripped his fists, feeling the thunderous rhythm of a pulse he thought he'd lost forever. For the first time since his childhood, Zio felt a tidal wave of raw strength coursing through his veins. Suddenly, his eyes snapped wide as the horrific cost of his revival set in. The realization hit him like a physical blow, the blood of the loyal dogs. He had consumed it all. The thugs were thrown into a state of absolute hysteria. What is this sorcery? He was a skeleton a second ago. Boss, what the hell do we do? The boss lunged from the shadows behind Zio, barking a frenzied order. What do you mean, what now? Take him down. We only need him alive, not intact. But before he could even register the movement, a colossal, bone-shattering punch cratered his face. Zio swung his fist with the primal, unchecked instinct of a cornered beast. The impact was so immense it sent the car in front skidding to a violent halt. The thug's skull was hammered directly into the side of the vehicle, denting the cold steel. With trembling hands, Zio gathered Potato's limp, broken body into a desperate embrace. He collapsed into the blood-stained snow beside the dog, his soul fracturing with grief. Zio lowered his head, a terrifying silence emanating from him before he hissed, "I have mastered the art of the most agonizing death." Then, his voice boomed with chilling authority. "The first one to talk is the only one who gets to keep their life." The air turned to ice as the thugs were paralyzed by a wave of pure, unadulterated terror. Zio's gaze turned hollow and abyssal as he began the interrogation. "Where the hell did you take Hyge?" A suffocating night descended over a desolate, decaying factory complex. The derelict lot, once empty, was now a hornet's nest of black sedans. Inside the gloom, a figure was frantically thrashing to shed a rough burlap sack from their head. Hyge finally tore it away, her eyes wide as she scanned the grim surroundings. Who are you monsters?" Her pupils were dilated with a volatile mix of confusion and predatory fear. Standing before Hyge was a gallery of scarred, brutish men, their faces etched with malice. Her expression grew gaunt as she fought to keep the rising tide of hysteria at bay. "Where am I?" In the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of something barbaric, the discarded remains of previous victims. Suddenly, a hand fisted into Hyde's hair with sickening force. "This one's a fine specimen, isn't she?" The thug sneered, ignoring her cries of agony as he yanked harder. "You think you're special? You think you've got extra lives to play with?" He thrust a crumpled photo of Zio into her face. "If you want to curse someone, curse this bag of bones. Your life is over because you chose to play savior." The thug's voice dropped to a murderous whisper. "Keep your pathetic mouth shut if you want to see another sunrise." His eyes were pools of bloodthirsty intent as he scanned the room. There are only a few witnesses to bury here. Every word he spat made Hyde's world go gray. In this godforsaken place, her disappearance would mean nothing. Abruptly, the shrill ring of a phone shattered the tension in the thug's pocket. He stood up, snarling into the receiver. "What? Why are you calling me instead of hauling your worthless asses over here?" He listened for a heartbeat, his face contorting into a mask of disbelief. "Where's the skeleton?" The thug barked in confusion, his voice cracking. "Huh? What the hell do the stray dogs have to do with anything?" He couldn't mask the pure shock in his tone. The skeleton, transformed into a human. The thug finally exploded in a fit of rage. "What kind of delusional garbage are you spewing? Speak clearly. What do those mutts do?" Hyge caught fragments of the frantic conversation, a spark of hope flickering through her dread. "The dogs? What is happening? Did they come for me?" The man growled, summarizing the disaster slowly. "So, let me get this straight. You actually let the specimen slip through your fingers." He roared into the phone, his face turning purple with fury. "You incompetent piece of trash. Do you have any idea how many millions that brat is worth? How would you let him walk?" He slammed the phone into the concrete, shattering it into pieces. "You brainless vermin. If you don't bring him back, consider yourselves dead men." He whirled around and seized Hyge by the throat. You're his little pet. You know exactly where that skeleton is hiding. Talk, or I'll start peeling your skin." The thug screamed directly into her face, spittle flying. "Start barking, you bitch. That freak is my payday. My money." Hyge gasped for air, her voice a mere shadow. I don't know anything." He let out a dark, mocking laugh at her defiance. "Yeah, sure. That's what they all say at the start." His expression shifted into something truly demonic. "Let's see if your memory improves after I carve a few more holes for you to breathe through." Hyge trembled, her eyes locked on the jagged blade before her. Zio warned me he was being hunted, but I was the one who played the fool. A crushing weight of despair settled over her. What am I going to do? Suddenly, a blurred streak of violence flashed through the warehouse. One of the mercenaries was launched across the room like a broken rag doll, crashing into a stack of crates. The sudden, explosive intervention caused the entire gang to freeze in stunned silence. Through the settling dust, a dark, imposing silhouette appeared at the warehouse entrance. The lead thug squinted, his hand going to his holster as he glanced back. He glared at the intruder with mounting suspicion. Who the hell are you supposed to be? Another thug stepped forward, posturing with a crowbar. Hey, you lost, beggar? Looking at those rags, you're just some homeless trash. But before he could utter another syllable, he was hoisted into the air by his throat. The man struggled, his face turning blue as he wheezed out in terror, the dogs. What kind of monster strength is this? Zio's voice was like ice cutting through the air. Because of you bastards. He tightened his grip with lethal intent that my dogs are dead. Seeing their comrade hoisted like a doll, the others surged forward. Don't just stand there. Kill him. A heavy fist slammed into Zio's jaw. He didn't flinch, merely spitting out a spray of thick metallic crimson. Without a second's delay, Zio retaliated with a bone-shattering counterpunch. He followed through instantly, burying a brutal elbow strike into the man's ribs. Suddenly, a faster thug lunged from the shadows and pinned Zio's arms. Got him. Sensing the opening, another thug drove a savage knee strike into Zio's midsection. Yet, Zio's expression remained a mask of chilling, eerie composure. With a burst of raw, superhuman power, Zio effortlessly shattered their formation. The leader and his remaining henchmen stood paralyzed, their jaws dropping in disbelief. He leveled a grim, predatory gaze at the group. You vermin. Zio's eyes were now flooded with a terrifying killing intent. The lab or mech sent you to collect me, didn't they? Watching the carnage from the floor, Hyde was struck by a wave of pure shock. It can't be. She stared at the man's perfect human form in total bewilderment. Zio, is that really you? The lead thug, recovering from his shock, let out a sadistic cackle. Who cares what he looks like? It really is that walking bag of bones. He smirked, recalling his orders. The smugglers warned us his appearance might change once he regenerated. They weren't lying. I never would have recognized this brat. The thug's face twisted into a mock grin of gratitude. But thank for the upgrade. In a flash, he leveled his firearm at Zio's chest. For walking straight into your own execution. The leader roared to his subordinates. Break out the heavy ordnance. We're putting this freak down for good. In an instant, every man was armed to the teeth, eager to feed Zio a relentless diet of lead. If we bring this specimen in, we're set for life. Don't hold back. Vandalize him. Open fire. Zio stood motionless, making no effort to dodge the onslaught. Shoot him until his regeneration hits its limit. A hail of bullets tore through the air, ripping into his flesh. Don't stop. Riddle them with holes. Inside Zio's mind, a single, familiar sensation echoed, pain. He felt the white-hot agony of his skin being shredded across his entire body. It wasn't merely a surface burn. Zio could feel the sickening vibration of his bones being pulverized into splinters. His lungs collapsed under the pressure, leaving him gasping for air he couldn't take. I can't breathe. Hyde watched, her heart breaking in helpless agony. Stop it. I beg you stop. Finally, Zio's body gave way, and he slumped to the ground, prompting the thugs to lower their steaming barrels. The freak's finally dead. He lay in a widening, tragic pool of deep scarlet. But then, a finger twitched silently in the gore. His fingertips began to act like a vacuum, greedily reeling in the spilled crimson. His fist clenched with newfound power, rapidly absorbing every drop of blood. A thunderous, echoing thud, the sound of a revitalized heart, reverberated through the warehouse. A thug with a jagged facial scar shrieked in terror, "Boss, look, The entire gang stood frozen, witnessing a sight that defied every law of nature. He's rising again. Even the leader's bravado crumbled. He's standing up like some relentless, unkillable zombie. Before their very eyes, Zio's body was thirstily drinking the spilled blood, healing at an impossible speed. Frenzied screams tried to break the men's trance. Don't just gawk at him. Kill it. Keep shooting. Zio felt the first volley of lead bury itself in his chest. Without a moment's hesitation, a second bullet tore through his shoulder. Then a lethal barrage followed, a concentrated storm of lead aimed directly at Zio's skull. His gaze remained arctic and indifferent as he watched the projectiles approach. They didn't just hit. They detonated his flesh, tearing his body into a gory silhouette. Zio could feel every single cell in his body screaming in protest, yet his form continued to knit itself back together. Strangely, it doesn't hurt as much as I expected. Perhaps it was his past catching up. He had already endured these visceral sensations 1,000 times over. I have already survived torture sessions that pushed the very boundaries of human endurance, back to back for years. That hellish experience had left Zio utterly desensitized. The experiments in that lab were infinitely more agonizing than this. Back in the physical world, a lightning-fast punch exploded against the scarred thug's face. With mechanical efficiency, Zio neutralized another attacker, knocking him out cold. He turned toward the leader, radiating a suffocating aura of power. Regarding the firearms, Zio coldly declared, "I could endure this all day." One of the lowlives gasped in sheer disbelief. He launched him into the air with one hit. Before he could even finish his sentence, he became the next victim of the carnage. He raised his arm to block, but Zio shattered his bones like dry twigs with a single devastating punch. The explosive rage boiling in his veins made him lose all restraint over his superhuman strength. Watching another mercenary get sent flying like a rag doll by Zio was enough to strike terror into my soul. The dogs, they gave their lives to protect me. He unleashed his entire reservoir of fury upon every single one of those bastards. Suddenly, the wagging tail and bright eyes of Potato flashed through Zio's mind. That memory made the sting of his own helplessness feel like a blade to the heart. The bitter truth is, suddenly, the lead thug shrieked in a high-pitched panic, "Don't come any closer, you freak." Despite his hollow threats, his hands were trembling uncontrollably. "Stay back, or I'll put a bullet in this girl's head right now." Unfazed by the bluff, Zio lunged forward to pulverize him. "You won't get the chance." In a heartbeat, the thug's face was transformed into a bloody, unrecognizable mess. Zio's visage twisted with primal loathing as he made a silent, grim vow. "I'm sending these monsters to hell." With a sickening thud, the man was punched so hard he dented a massive industrial tank. A moment later, the thug barely managed to cling to the edges of consciousness. Suddenly, a dark, suffocating shadow loomed over his fading vision. Only now did the coward realize the nightmare he had invited, begging through broken teeth, "Please, have mercy. I'll do anything. Just let me live." But Zio's only response was to wind up for a final, lethal strike. Mercy is for the dead. He showed no pity and crushed him. The thug could do nothing but convulse and cough up a thick, metallic syrup. Before he could even draw another breath, Zio drove a follow-up strike directly into his skull. What followed was a brutal, one-sided execution as Zio vented 15 years of bottled-up hatred on the man. The velocity of his strikes increased until they became a blur of raw violence. Moments later, the thug's face was swollen into a grotesque, unrecognizable mask of gore. Zio stood amidst the wreckage, staring down at his work with a hollow, haunting silence. His hands were no longer human. They were stained a deep, permanent crimson. Zio slowly withdrew his fist from the thug's ruined face, the sound of the aftermath echoing. The concrete floor was littered with the broken, twisted bodies of the entire gang. Zio was still radiating a suffocating aura of bloodlust, prompting Hyde to call out in a trembling voice, "Zio?" Hearing her soft voice, the monster within Zio finally began to recede. He turned his heavy, blood-soaked steps toward Hyde. Zio approached her slowly, his presence overwhelming. Shaking with terror and relief, Hyde whispered, Are you really okay? I saw them shoot you so many times." Suddenly, the adrenaline failed and Zio collapsed to his knees, pulling her into a desperate hug. Thank God. His eyes, once filled with cold murder, were now overflowing with hot tears. Zio's voice cracked into a jagged sob as he choked out, "You're safe. You're actually alive." He confessed to Hyde with a trembling, broken voice, "The dogs. The ones who saved me. They're all gone." That was the fear that had been clawing at his insides. "I was so terrified that the world would take you too, Hyde." Only now did the crushing weight of anxiety lift. "I'm so grateful. I'm so glad you're still breathing." Hyde listened to his heart-wrenching confession, her gaze melting into pure empathy. "I'm the one who did nothing." She placed her hand gently against Zio's back, feeling the tremors of his grief. Hyde pulled him into a tight embrace and whispered with total sincerity, "I'm the one who owes you my life, Zio." In the middle of the emotional fallout, the police suddenly swarmed the complex. "Secure the perimeter. Get these suspects into custody immediately." One thug was already being slammed against the pavement and handcuffed by the officers. The rest of the survivors were trapped within the dragnet. The detectives observed the carnage with suspicion. "Looks like a gang war. But one man did all this damage? Impossible." Meanwhile, Hyde and Zio were eavesdropping from the shadows outside the warehouse. Hyde whispered with a sigh of relief, "They're taking those monsters away." Zio worried, "Won't they come looking for us?" Hyde tried to remain composed. "My sister told us to vanish for now. If the authorities find a mutant heart at a crime scene, things get dark fast." She squeezed Zio's hand to reassure him. She promised she'd bury the evidence. "So let's disappear while we can." With one last look at the scene of the slaughter, the two of them turned and vanished into the depths of the forest. A moment later, as if the dam had finally burst, Hyde began to sob with primal, uncontrollable grief. Zio could only bury his face in his hands, his entire frame shuddering under the crushing weight of guilt. Kneeling before the small, broken bodies scattered across the frozen earth, his voice cracked into a jagged whisper. "I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry." In a trance of despair, Zio spoke their names like a final prayer. Baduk, Shiru, Dengu, Choco, Bai, and Maru. Hyde's eyes were drowned in a fresh wave of tears. She was spiraling into a vortex of self-loathing. "This blood is on my hands. They only followed us because they were trying to save me." Hyde pulled Potato's limp form into a final, agonizing embrace. "I failed them. I only gave them a few scraps of food and a moment of warmth, yet they gave me their very lives." Zio couldn't stand to see Hyde mutilating her own soul. He bit into his finger with savage force, letting the thick syrup flow. "No, Hyde, don't. They died so I could use their blood to survive." Witnessing Zio's self-harm, Hyde gasped in sheer terror. "Zio, stop it. What are you doing?" Clinging to a desperate, fraying hope, Zio looked at his bleeding hand. "My life is fueled by blood. If my essence is this potent, can I force the spark of life back into them?" The crimson fluid dripped onto the fur of the fallen, but the only miracle was the instant sealing of the wound on Zio's own finger. Seeing his body prioritize its own healing over the dead made Zio snap. He bit down again, deeper this time. "Damn it. Heal them, not me. Why am I recovering so fast?" The life-giving syrup poured from his fingertip like a grisly rain. Terrified by his mania, Hyde lunged forward to restrain him. "Stop this. They would be heartbroken if they saw you hurting like this." Zio froze, his mind reeling. "Heartbroken? They were butchered because of my existence. Shouldn't they curse me?" Through her own haze of sorrow, Hyde reached out to anchor him. "How could they ever hate you? You were the center of their world." Zio's voice was a hollow rasp. I know. Hyde's words painted a vivid, bittersweet picture of their loyalty. They were terrified of humans, but with you, they finally felt safe. Zio slumped, the fire leaving his eyes. He turned her words over in his mind. Terrified of humans? She finally bared the truth of their past. Yes, their bodies were roadmaps of abuse and scars. They knew the worst of humanity, yet they chose to believe in you. Zio gently stroked Potato's cold face, his heart heavy. I never knew. I thought they were just born with such kind souls. Hyde whispered a final plea. So, if you bleed out in some futile penance, you're only spitting on the sacrifice they made. Zio rested his hand on the small dog's head, falling into a long, heavy silence that stretched into the night. Hyde watched him with profound empathy. The fact that those traumatized creatures chose him without a single doubt. Her words were a mirror to Zio's hidden pain. The dogs hadn't just seen a human. They had recognized a fellow survivor of the abyss. At that realization, the iron knots in Zio's chest finally began to unravel. Thank you. Suddenly, a tiny, frail yip broke the silence. Both of them whipped their heads around, caught completely off guard. Hyde let out a cry of pure joy as a tiny ball of fur emerged. It was Potato's pup. I thought we'd lost you too. Thank God. Thank God you're alive. The puppy trotted toward Zio with wobbly confidence. Zio stared in wide-eyed disbelief. What? The pup sat down perfectly in front of Zio, its tiny tail thumping a rhythmic greeting. Hyde whispered in awe. Is he choosing you? Zio knelt down, his face inches from the puppy's. You don't want to run? Your mother and your family. They're gone because of me. The puppy's response was a relentless barrage of licks against his hand, treating him like a long-lost brother. Zio instinctively laid back on the grass, pulling the tiny creature to his chest. This little guy. Hyde beamed through her tears. I think he's claimed you as his person, Zio. Before the moment could even settle, the pup drifted into a deep sleep. Zio marveled at the tiny life. Asleep already? The poor thing is completely spent. Watching Zio cradle the pup, Hyde's mind began to race. We can't leave this innocent thing out here. Should I take him? Can I protect him? She looked at Zio, a man who was himself a fugitive from monsters. And what about Zio? Those lab fanatics won't stop until they've picked his bones clean. The weight was too much to carry alone. She scrambled for her phone. Wait here, Zio. I need to call my sister. Zio, still dazed by the warmth in his arms, could only mutter, okay. Hyde barked into the phone, sis. It's done. We're safe for now, but where do we go? While Hyde navigated the logistics, Zio sat in quiet contemplation. Hyde finally hung up with a nod. That's the best plan. See you soon. After making the final arrangements. The two of them stood up, took the sleeping puppy, and began their trek out of the dark woods. The stars were high by the time they reached the safety of a nondescript apartment complex. As the door swung open, Zio hesitated at the threshold. A home. Hyde saw his doubt and pulled him inside. Don't just stand there. Make yourself at home. Zio scanned the cozy interior, his voice laced with caution. Is it truly wise to let me in? Someone as dangerous as I am. Hyde's smile was a beacon of warmth that shattered the tension. You nearly died to keep me breathing. You're the least dangerous person I know. She suddenly turned back. Oh, my sister is dying to meet you. Zio's heart hammered. Me? Hyde nodded. Yeah, she's building a case against that lab, and you're the key witness they've been trying to bury. Hyde nudged him further into the warmth. Seriously, relax. Just come in. Zio found himself standing before a mirror, staring at a stranger's reflection for what felt like hours. Suddenly, he gripped the frame and let out a startled shout. Hyde rushed into the room, panicked. What happened? Zio turned to her, eyes shining with wonder. I have cheeks, Hyde. A nose. Actual lips. While Hyde stood there blinking, Zio let out a jubilant cheer. My face. My real face is finally back. Hyde was stunned by his reaction. You didn't know? Zio looked back at the glass. I haven't been whole since I was a child. The lab only ever healed me to prepare me for the next experiment. Zio's voice drifted off. He traced the lines of his jaw, mesmerized. So, this is the man I was supposed to be. Hyde felt a cold sweat break out as the horror of his past sank in. She drained a bottle of water in one go, her chest heaving. The more you tell me, the more my brain hurts. But I actually noticed something a while ago. She couldn't suppress her growing fascination. Now that your features have returned, you look surprisingly young. Exactly how old are you? Just a ballpark guess is fine. The question caught Zio off guard. He looked down at his palms, counting his fingers with an earnest expression. It's been so long, I've honestly lost track of the years. The fragmented timeline of his existence flickered behind his eyes as he began to calculate. I was incarcerated at age 7. I endured a massive year-end exam 7 times, and the seasons have turned thrice since my escape. So, after a moment of silent mental arithmetic, he reached a startling conclusion. I am 17. The revelation struck Hyde like a physical blow. She was so caught off guard that she choked on her water. She immediately turned on him, demanding, Zio, we're the same age? Why on earth did you wait until now to mention that? With Hyde leaning into his personal space, Zio's ears turned a vivid shade of crimson. He awkwardly scratched the back of his neck. I was just so overwhelmed that you were treating me like a person. His hesitant, vulnerable tone caused Hyde to freeze for a few heartbeats. She struggled to reconcile her conflicting emotions. What is this feeling? It's heartbreakingly pitiful, yet somehow incredibly cute. To shatter the tension, Hyde pivoted the conversation. From now on, no more honorifics. Just use my name, okay? Zio nodded eagerly. Okay. Hyde nudged him toward the bathroom. Dinner's almost ready. Go scrub up. Zio followed her lead like a devoted pup. I'm on it. A short while later, the puppy was devouring his meal with primal gusto, his tail a blur of pure, unadulterated joy. The pup wasn't the only one. Zio was finally experiencing the simple pleasure of a home-cooked meal. He couldn't stop praising the feast with every bite. This is incredible. The feeling of hot food. It's like magic. Hyde exhaled a breath she didn't know she was holding as Zio polished off every grain of rice. It's just a simple egg over rice with soy sauce. I'm a terrible cook, but if you actually like it, I'm relieved. With his stomach finally full and warm, Zio felt as though his very soul had been revitalized. No, you don't understand. This is the most exquisite meal I've had in a lifetime. While clearing the table, Hyde's phone buzzed with a message. Oh, my sister just checked in. An emergency cropped up at the station, so she won't be back tonight. She must be drowning in paperwork. Zio truly honored the meal. Not a single scrap or crumb remained on the table when he was finished. Once the dishes were cleared, Hyde prepared a makeshift bed on the sofa. You'll be crashing here tonight. Zio stammered in disbelief. On the sofa? Hyde blinked. What? Is it uncomfortable? Zio quickly waved his hands. No, it's just, I'm used to the floor. Seeing his flustered reaction, Hyde let out a melodic laugh. Don't be silly. Just take this blanket and get some rest. Zio accepted the fleece with profound reverence. Thank you. Hyde flicked off the lights, heading for her room. I've got a mountain of homework to climb, so I'm turning in. Sleep well. Zio was flooded with a sense of peace. All right. Thank you for everything. With a final nod, Hyde retreated into her room and firmly closed the door, leaving Zio standing in the quiet, velvet darkness of the living room. He scanned the space, his eyes wide as they traced the silhouettes of the furniture. Catching his shadow in the reflection of the TV, he marveled, how can a screen be this impossibly thin yet so massive? Every detail of the outside world felt like an alien landscape to him. They even keep nature in glass vases. It's a universe away from the laboratory. The moment he sank into the cushions, an involuntary gasp escaped him. This is absolute luxury. How can anything be this soft? It puts the sterile lab beds to shame. Nearby, the puppy was still focused on the last bits of kibble in his bowl. Suddenly, the pup inhaled a piece too quickly and began to wheeze and choke. Watching the tiny creature struggle for air, Zio's heart plummeted into a state of sheer panic. He scrambled toward the dog, paralyzed by indecision, until finally the pup coughed up the obstruction. The sight of the pup in distress turned Zio's face ash-white as he cried out, "Puppy!" He threw aside his blanket and vaulted off the sofa. He rushed to the side of the small dog, his hands shaking. Abruptly, the pup shook himself off and went right back to his meal as if nothing had happened, leaving Zio frozen in mid-motion. The puppy looked up with curious eyes, seemingly oblivious to the chaos he had just caused. Seeing the pup's tail wagging again, Zio let out a long, shaky sigh of relief. "Oh, thank God. He's all right." He lifted the pup onto the sofa beside him, his face radiating a quiet, domestic happiness. Zio rolled onto his back, sinking into the cushions. Warm, soft, and safe. "It's perfect." The pup matched his energy, pouncing on him and climbing over his chest. He showered Zio's face with grateful licks. Zio chuckled softly. "You love this too, don't you?" Zio gazed at the puppy with eyes full of tenderness, deep in thought. "What should I name you?" "Your potato's legacy." "Potato." "Fried potato?" Zio ruffled the pup's ears. "How about French fry? Do you like the sound of that?" The pup barked happily, his tail thumping against the fabric. The deal was sealed. "From this moment on, you're Fry." In the deepening silence, Fry quickly surrendered to exhaustion and fell fast asleep. Zio watched the rise and fall of the pup's chest, a faint smile touching his lips. "It's so warm. So this is what they call happiness." He drifted back to the memory of the simple, delicious meal Hige had prepared. Zio also recalled the surreal sensation of the hot water during his bath. A warm soak, a luxury I never dreamed of actually touching. The feeling was pure, unadulterated bliss. He gently stroked Fry's soft fur. He felt an overwhelming wave of gratitude just to be sleeping in a place that didn't smell of disinfectant. But the sanctuary of happiness was short-lived. Zio's survival instincts soon dragged him back to the cold light of reality. As a man born in shadows and raised in chains, Zio knew better than anyone how quickly such dreams could be torn away. In his half-conscious state, the traumatic echoes of his escape suddenly roared back to life. "Run. Move your legs." Zio was at the head of a desperate group, sprinting toward the final threshold of freedom. The exit. It's right there. But the predators were closing in, errant mutant hearts, the lab's most lethal hunters. They leveled their weapons at the fugitives. Don't let a single one of them reach the sunlight. The devastating discharge from the lab's weaponry sent the escaping fugitives hurtling backward in a flurry of chaos. Zio could still taste the metallic tang of fear, the agonizing pain, the crushing impotence, and the bitter surrender to a sadistic fate. That horrific day was etched into his soul forever. But the nightmare was just beginning. One of the hunters leveled his barrel directly at the broken bodies littering the pavement. The hammer clicked back with a cold, mechanical finality. A single twitch of finger was all that stood between life and extinction. A relentless inferno, surging like a cataclysmic tidal wave, roared toward the survivors. Yet in that heartbeat, an anomaly occurred that the lab's elite never saw coming. A girl with short-cropped hair conjured a wall of jagged ice to intercept the flames, fighting with every fiber of her being to buy them a few precious seconds. Pinned beneath a massive boulder, Zio felt the world fading until a sharp command pierced the haze. "Kim Zio, move your ass now." A hand, mapped with scars, reached into his vision. A black-haired youth was straining against gravity, using thick, spectral tree roots to heave the boulder off Zio's crushed frame. His muscles tore under the immense pressure. In that desperate gaze, Zio finally grasped the gravity of their gambit. Even as the world collapsed around them, the short-haired girl beckoned to Zio. "Run. Don't look back. The gate is right there." Without a shred of doubt, Zio seized her hand and ignited into a sprint toward the light. "Let's go." Revisiting those ghosts made his chest tighten with a suffocating weight. They had clawed through hell just for a chance to breathe. His eyes clouded with the corrosive sting of survivor's guilt. Despite their pact, they had been scattered to the winds. The haunting would have kept sleep at bay. While he sat in comfort, they were likely still bleeding in some dark corner. Those traumatic echoes only hardened his resolve. I refused to let another soul be ripped away from me. Zio's voice was like tempered steel as he stroked Fry's fur. Even if this peace is only a fleeting dream. The crimson veins in his hands pulsed with a violent, rhythmic intensity. If anyone dares to trample on this fragile sanctuary. His gaze flickered between a roaring fire and an arctic chill. He was a man possessed by a new purpose. I don't care who they serve. I will make them regret the day they were born. Another sun rose. In the early hours of the morning, Zio's frantic bellows shattered the suburban silence. He was tearing down the quiet pavement, his lungs burning and his breath coming in jagged gasps. He barreled forward, his voice cracking as he screamed, "Fry! Fry!" Tears and bile streaked his face, his heart hammered by the terror of his second loss. "Fry, where have you gone?" To understand Zio's descent into panic, we have to rewind to when Hyge was preparing for her day. "I'm off to school, Zio." He blinked, the word tasting foreign. "School?" Hyge offered a reassuring smile. "My sister promised to be back by sundown. Can I trust you to keep an eye on the place?" He tilted his head, confused. "Not until tonight." Hyge sighed. "Yeah, she's buried under a mountain of cases." Zio didn't press further. "Understood. Focus on your studies." He couldn't help but wonder. Is school as bright as it sounds? As she reached for the handle, Hyge hesitated. She looked down to find Fry frantically clawing at the wood. What's gotten into him? Zio knelt down, equally baffled by the pup's sudden agitation. Hyge scrutinized the dog. He doesn't seem pained. Maybe he's just desperate for some fresh air. But she couldn't exactly bring a puppy to a lecture. What a mess. Zio stepped up, seeing a chance to be useful. "You get to your class. I'll take him for a quick lap around the block." Hyge bit her lip, the shadows of yesterday lingering. "I don't know. What if those predators are still lurking?" Zio gave her a confident, almost cocky grin. "Relax. Look at me. I'm a completely different man. I'm a ghost to them now." Hyge wavered for a second before nodding. "All right, but be careful." Before stepping out, she bombarded him with instructions. "If you take him out, use the harness. It's in the second drawer. Just secure the latch and—" "I'm already late. The leash is right here." Zio scooped up Fry and waved her off. "Don't worry, Hyge. We got this." But the moment Fry's paws hit the concrete, he erupted. The pup began thrashing and rolling like a wild animal. Zio struggled with the lead, trying to sound authoritative. "Fry, quit it. You need the leash for your own safety." Seeing the dog's frantic struggle, Zio's heart began to ache. Is it really causing him this much distress? As the pup's whimpers turned to growls, Zio's mind spiraled. Did I pull it too tight? Is he suffocating? Am I becoming the oppressor? I spent my life at the end of a chain just like this. The sensory memory surged back. The agonizing bite of the electric collar and the searing white light of the shocks if he strayed an inch. Torn between empathy and safety, Zio sighed. "I hate this, buddy, but the world is a dangerous place for a loose dog." He muttered a soft apology. "Just bear with me, Fry." But when he looked down to finish his plea, all that remained at the end of the leash was an empty collar. Zio's soul nearly left his body. How the hell did you slip out of a locked harness? And thus, Zio was transformed into a screaming whirlwind of panic. "Fry, I had one simple task, and I've already failed." He was a sobbing mess as he sprinted through the streets. "Fry, come back to me." Meanwhile, Fry was undoubtedly embarking on the greatest adventure of his short life. Zio scanned every alleyway, his eyes darting through the shadows. "Where are you, Fry? Give me a sign." He began frantically flipping trash lids. "Are you hiding in here?" He dropped his knees to peer under parked cars. "Maybe under here?" Zio literally buried his head into a mountain of refuse in his desperation. "Are you in this heap?" After a while, the panic peaked, and he began tearing at his own hair. "What have I done? How will I ever find him? What if he's out there alone and terrified?" Zio's mind spiraled into a vortex of horrific scenarios, picturing Fry crushed under a car or snatched by someone even more monstrous than his old captors. The weight of it brought fresh tears to his eyes. I just swore an oath to protect him last night, and I couldn't even make it through a single morning. Suddenly, a distinct rustle and a series of playful yaps snapped Zio back to reality. Peering across a sprawling athletic field, he spotted a small silhouette flicking its ears in the sun. Wait, is it a school? There was Fry, perched on the grass, and grooming his fur with the nonchalant attitude of a king. Zio's heart leaped. He'd recognize that little tail anywhere. Terrified the pup would vanish again, he bolted toward the field, certain the little guy had tracked Hyde's scent to her doorstep. As he sprinted, the physical education teacher happened to look up. The man saw nothing but a literal blur of speed whistling past him. What in the world? He muttered, scratching his head in disbelief. Did I just see a human move that fast? Is it even possible? Zio, however, was deaf to the world's confusion. His entire soul was focused on one goal. Fry, don't move. I'm coming for you. Inside the gates, the campus was a beehive of activity. A fierce soccer match was in full swing nearby. Clusters of students drifted across the courtyard, their laughter and chatter filling the air. The atmosphere was electric, vibrating with the chaotic energy of youth and freedom. Watching from behind a tree, Zio looked utterly lost. How is everyone so? Happy? Is this what normal life looks like? His attention was suddenly snagged by a group of students huddled nearby. They were trading rumors like currency. I heard mutants are all lab-grown freaks who escaped. PFF, that's just a creepypasta. They were all glued to a viral video. Breaking news, a 1 billion won bounty issued for unregistered mutants, uncovering the gruesome underworld of the human trafficking syndicates. The students gasped at the astronomical figure. Catching one mutant is a one-way ticket to luxury. Yeah, like you'd survive a run-in with those thugs. Zio felt a chill as he realized he was seen as a walking jackpot. A cold realization settled in his gut. He had to be invisible. I need to grab Fry and vanish before anyone looks too closely. His eyes locked onto his target. Got you. Fry, stay put. Nearby, a group of girls were critiquing a dance challenge on a glowing screen. Well, did I nail the transition? Her friends erupted in sycophantic praise. Oh my God, it's perfect. Minjong, you're a literal beast. You look breathtaking, like a total visual goddess. Minjong basked in the adoration, offering a practiced, shallow compliment in return. Stop, you guys are making me blush. You all look cute too. Suddenly, one of them pointed toward the grass. Wait, stop everything. Is that a puppy? How precious. Minjong didn't hesitate, scooping him up with a squeal. Oh, you little darling. Where did you wander from? Are you all alone, sweetie? The influencer instinct kicked in instantly. Quick, get in the frame. This is going straight to my story. Just as she prepared to record, a dark, looming shadow fell over her. Minjong shrieked, nearly dropping her phone. What the hell? Are you a stalker? Or just some creep trying to sneak a photo of us? The girls joined in, hurling insults like stones. Ugh, what a total freak. Zio winced, recoiling slightly behind the trunk. I apologize, he stammered, his voice thin with social anxiety. I didn't mean to startle you, but you're holding my dog, Fry. The moment the girls actually looked at Zio's restored face, their hostility evaporated into pure infatuation. Wait, he's actually stunning. Look at those features. The whispers started immediately. With that gear, he must be a freshman. I've never seen him around. Is he a new transfer? Zio asked tentatively. I'm sorry, did I ruin your video? At the mention of the clip, they perked up. Oh, we're filming a TikTok. You're gorgeous. Want to be our co-star? One girl pretended to act coy for a split second before lunging. Why bother asking? He's a total hottie. You're a freshman, right? We should definitely be friends. Zio felt suffocated by the attention. No, I really shouldn't be in any photos. Suddenly, a high-end smartphone was shoved inches from his nose. Give me your Instagram handle. It was Min Jong, her voice carrying a tone of absolute expectation. I'll tag you in my next post. The other girls shared a stunned look. Whoa, Min Jong never asked for handles. He must really be top tier. They pressured him. Come on. She has over 100,000 followers. A single tag from her, and your following will go through the roof. Zio stood there, completely illiterate to their digital world. Min Jong smirked, liking the challenge. He's a visual masterpiece. This shy act is actually pretty charming. Zio fumbled for an excuse. But, Min Jong thought, playing hard to get? He'll fold. But his next sentence shattered her confidence. I don't have an account. I don't know what that is. Min Jong's expression froze, her grip on her phone tightening until her knuckles turned white. Zio bowed with genuine remorse. I'm truly sorry, but I have to decline your offer. Truly. The surrounding girls were in a state of sheer shock. They hissed to each other. Did he just shoot down Min Jong? Most guys would kill for her handle, and he just shut the door in her face. Min Jong's vanity was wounded, her blood boiling. Is he for real? Is he trying to make a fool out of me? She felt the sting of rejection, but tried to play it off. How quaint. I was just trying to be nice. Give me your. Before she could persist, Zio lunged and gathered Fry into his arms. This is my dog. We're leaving now. The fact that he seemed more interested in the pup than her only fanned the flames of her rage. Fry, I'm so sorry. I'm never letting you out of my sight again. Unbeknownst to them, there was another observer watching the scene with murderous intent. Taegu stared from across the yard, his knuckles white. Who the hell does that guy think he is? His teammates stopped their game, snickering. Hey, Taegu, isn't that your girl he's talking to? It was the final spark needed to ignite a fuse. That clown used the dog as bait just to hit on Min Jong. I've been tracking him since he arrived. Who the hell is he? No clue. Probably a transfer, but looks like he's in our grade. Taegu's face flushed a deep, murderous crimson. He's seriously marking his territory with Min Jong right in front of me? He ripped the ball from the teammate standing beside him. Give me that. His friend stood there dazed. The ball? But as soon as he saw Taegu's lethal shooting form, the realization hit him like a freight train. Wait, stop. The last time you launched a shot like that, you shattered someone's nose. Taegu ignored the warning and unleashed a thunderous kick. That idiot's injury wasn't my problem. The ball whistled through the air like a guided missile. By the time it reached Zio's vicinity, he finally caught the movement out of the corner of his eye, but it was far too late to react. In a fraction of a second, the blurred leather was inches from Zio's face. He tried to tilt his head, but his face absorbed the full, bone-shaking momentum of the impact. A girl nearby gasped, her voice laced with worry. Are you all right? Seeing a dark fluid begin to drip, the students erupted in a panicked chorus. Look, he's bleeding. Are you hurt bad? Taegu sauntered over, wearing a mask of mock innocence. Whoops, my foot must have slipped. Min Jong hissed irritably. Damn it, Taegu. That nearly took our heads off. He just laughed it off. My bad. Pure accident. Min Jong turned back to Zio. Are you okay? That looked painful. Suddenly, a low, frigid voice cut through the air, causing Taegu to snap his head around. Zio issued a chilling warning. You nearly hurt my dog. Apologize. Now, hearing this, Taegu doubled over, laughing until his eyes were mere slits. You're literally leaking from both nostrils, and you're worried about the mutt? He suddenly caught Min Jong's gaze and tried to play it cool. Min Jong is watching, you moron. Don't make a scene. Taegu pivoted back to his remorseful act. Oh man, did I actually get you? I got a history of accidentally breaking noses. You'd better crawl to the infirmary. Zio tightened his grip on Fry. The look in his eyes was anything but friendly. It was predatory. I'm Fine, but you almost hit the dog. Watch yourself. Taegu just sneered, continuing his mockery. Look at this guy, nose bleeding like a faucet but still trying to act tough. He gave a dismissive grunt. Yeah, whatever. Sorry. Dogs are precious. I get it. Zio forced a small smile and replied, apology accepted. I'm perfectly fine. Zio didn't waste another second. We're leaving. Let's head home, Fry. Taegu's lackey leaned in. That kid is more resilient than he looks. Taegu snapped at him to shut up before the group dispersed. He whispered a venomous order to his crony. Find out which class that brat is in. I can't stand that high and mighty attitude. Zio, meanwhile, was back in high spirits. He exhaled a long sigh of relief as they walked. That was a close call. I almost let Fry get hurt. A strange, new spark ignited within him. Still, thanks to Fry, I got a taste of what school is like. I even met people my own age. At that thought, Zio's grin widened. This is incredible. If I actually went to school, would I have a whole crew of friends? Just as the thought crossed his mind, a voice hailed him. Hey, buddy, wait up. Taegu approached, throwing a heavy arm around Zio's shoulder as if they were lifelong companions. Seriously, sorry about the ball earlier. Zio was momentarily stunned by the word buddy. Taegu nodded warmly. We're in the same grade, so we're basically brothers, right? He followed up with a sudden, tempting offer. You took a shot to the face, and I only gave you a cheap apology. That's not how I roll. Let me buy you some bread at the canteen. At the mention of food, Zio's stomach growled, and he felt his mouth water. Bread? He looked at Taegu with hopeful skepticism. You're actually treating me? Taegu confirmed with a firm nod. Of course. The bakery here is legendary. Zio patted Fry's head and asked, Is there anything Fry can eat? Taegu didn't miss a beat. Absolutely. I'll get him whatever his heart desires, he promised, his voice dripping with false sweetness. I was just posturing for the girls earlier. You look famished. I'll make sure you get your fill. Before Zio could even digest the kindness, a heavy boot was raised in the air. A vicious kick sent Zio skidding across the dirt. As he scrambled to find his footing, a voice mocked him from the shadows. You actually fell for it? Zio's eyes grew dark as the betrayal sank in. You really followed us into a trap just for a piece of bread? A malicious crowd materialized before him. This kid is a total dipshit. I'll give you a stomach full of pain instead. Zio realized too late that Taegu had lured him into a den of thugs. They continued to jeer. How about a knuckle sandwich for dessert? Hemmed in by Taegu's gang, the leader raised a hand and spat, TSK, TSK. Get a load of this pathetic loser. Zio shielded Fry, remaining silent. Taegu stepped forward, his face twisted. You want a beating? Who do you think you are, looking down on us? Zio replied with an eerie calmness. Looking down on you? I have no idea what you're talking about. The thug exploded. How dare you touch Minjong? Taegu pointed a finger at him, cursing with rabid intensity. One hit, and I'll have you sobbing on the floor. Stop playing the hero. You're begging for a hospital bed, aren't you? Seeing him, threatening Zio like that, Fry erupted into a series of defiant barks. The lackeys howled with laughter. The mud is terrified. Take it easy, Taegu. Another sneered, don't hit him too hard. Those twig legs might snap. Imagine bringing a dog to school just for attention. Take a wound up for a punch. Damn it. Zio hung his head in profound disappointment. God damn it. I actually believed I was here to find friendship. Turns out, it's just more mindless violence. He turned away, his voice heavy with sadness. Sorry for wasting your time. I'm going home. Taegu was stunned by the dismissal. What? Instantly, the gang circled him, blocking his path. Where do you think you're going? The thug behind him taunted. You're so arrogant, I almost let you walk. Zio. Issued a sharp, irritated command. Move. You're terrifying, Fry. The pup licked his hand in a show of defiance. The moment the words left his lips, a thug lunged and delivered a stinging slap to Zio's face. You're nothing but a stray dog yourself, and you have the nerve to bark at me. But before his hand could return, the thug was sent reeling backward, a geyser of blood erupting from his shattered nose. The entire gang stood paralyzed, staring at Ji Hyun twitching on the pavement, unable to process the violence they had just witnessed. What has happened? How is Ji Hyun already down? Taegu's jaw hit the floor, his face draining of all color. Am I losing my mind? He barely flicked his wrist and sent Ji Hyun airborne. In a desperate frenzy, the mob swarmed Zio from all sides. You arrogant bastard. What did you do to him? They roared with murderous intent. You're dead meat fur. Zio's gaze remained arctic, his eyes narrowing into predatory slits as they closed in. Suddenly, a searing spark of power ignited deep within his chest. With a single, explosive strike, he reduced the entire group to scrap metal. Taegu stumbled back in a cold sweat as Zio's speed turned into a lethal blur. Tears of pure terror streamed down Taegu's face as he reflexively threw his arms up to shield his head. Zio's fist halted mere millimeters from his eyes, the displaced air stinging Taegu's skin. Then, Zio unleashed a secondary blow toward Taegu that seemed to make the very foundation of the earth tremble. At the final microsecond, he diverted the impact into the solid wall, leaving Taegu vibrating in a state of absolute, soul-crushing horror. Zio towered over him with a chilling ultimatum. "I told you to cease. You're terrifying, Fry." The pup, meanwhile, flashed a smug, satisfied smirk. The remaining thugs shrieked in primal agony. What kind of monster is this? Then, the group scattered like rats, leaving Taegu abandoned. "He's a freak. He's a goddamn monster." Taegu stared at the massive crater in the concrete wall, his mind reeling. Impossible. Did he really just pulverize solid stone with his bare knuckles? He collapsed into a heap on the ground, whimpering, "I'm a dead man. One hit from that, and my skeleton would be dust." With snot and tears blurring his vision, the crushing reality set in. He had provoked a force beyond his comprehension. He pressed his forehead to the dirt, begging for his life. "Em Soda. I swear, I'll never cross you again." Taegu looked up and shoved his phone forward, displaying a puppy photo as a shield. "It was those guys. They're the ones who wanted to hurt the dog. I would never lay a finger on a pup. I got my own dog, Poppy. See? Isn't he precious? We're on the same side." Zio paused, visibly taken aback. He actually owns a dog? Could he have a heart after all? His eyes softened at the digital image. Taegu continued to wail, "Please, just have mercy this once." A heavy, suffocating silence stretched between the two. Then Zio turned to Fry and sighed. "Expending that much energy made me famished. Now that I think about it, I'm running on empty today." Taegu mrotse, debildiret. Why is he talking about lunch now? He searched Zio's vacant, unreadable expression. He reached a frantic conclusion. "That's it. This psycho is extorting me. He's using my life as leverage for a feast." How calculating. Cut to Hyde diligently taking notes in class. Meanwhile, a local snack sanctuary. Taegu had summoned a literal mountain of delicacies, piling the table high for his new overlord. Zio and Fry's eyes sparkled with pure, unadulterated gluttony. "Incredible. I'm going to savor every bite." Zio began inhaling the food with childlike joy. Taegu watched, completely baffled by the shift in tone. Zio turned to Fry, beaming, "Isn't this divine? The bread is stuffed with strawberries." Fry wagged his tail in ecstasy. Taegu ground his teeth in frustration. What is wrong with this kid? He's a walking weapon of mass destruction, but now he's acting like a total airhead. I can't pin him down. He replayed the massacre in his head. That punch sent grown men flying like paper. Was he some secret Olympic prodigy? A prohibivate? Taegu brooded in the corner. But even a pro, can they shatter a structural wall? I've never witnessed that level of raw power in my life. He decided it was time to deploy special measures. While Zio was busy cooing at Fry, "Try this, buddy. It literally melts." Taegu slipped away to make a call. "Bo Seung-chun? It's Taegu. How's the life of crime treating you?" The man was lounging in a smoky gambling den, his smile dripping with malice. "Taegu, been a while since you crawled out of the woodwork." This was Na-young Chun, 20 years old and hardened by the streets. Taegu whispered desperately into the receiver, "Boss, I need a favor. I'm pinned under a real nightmare here. Young Chunes bro furoet." "What? Someone actually had the stones to hit you? Are you joking? You're bothering me over a schoolyard scrap? Do I look like a charity for losers?" Taegu veilet. "But this guy's a freak of nature. This is the only time I'll ever beg you. Please, boss, just help me settle the score this once." One of the lowlives in the den called out, "What's the drama? Who's crying?" "Young Chun Smirket, some high school punk named Taegu." The idiot got humiliated and wants me to play Big Brother. The lackey scoffed, pathetic. Who could a varsity athlete possibly lose to? I'm bored out of my mind anyway. Tell him we'll be there to finish it. Yang Chun rubbed his eyes. What a hassle. Yang Chun finale relentet. I'm near your campus anyway. Bring the target out. Taegu's face lit up with a predatory glow. Yes. Thank you, boss. He glanced back at Zio with a triumphant, silent sneer. Transfer student, your funeral starts in 10 minutes. Suddenly, Zio held out a bag of chips toward his friend. Want to share? Taegu stimfinet. Zio continued. It's kind of depressing eating all this by myself. Taegu forced a plastic smile and handed over more sausages. No, you keep going. Have these and the soda too. My treat. Zio was ecstatic. Seriously? You're the best. As Taegu watched Zio feed Fry, a disturbing thought began to take root. How is this level of strength even physically possible? His eyes locked on Zio's hand as the boy played with the pup. Zio's skin looked flawless, untouched. He shivered. Wait, he definitely pulverized that wall with those knuckles. He should be a bloody mess, but there's not even a scratch? Taegu's confusion curdled into a dark realization. Wait, superhuman force. Instantaneous cellular regeneration. He recalled a documentary he'd once watched. Mutants. Beings with anomalous physiology and terrifying abilities. But they only make up 0.001 of the world. It's impossible to meet one, right? Taegu's voice shook. No way. He looked Zio dead in the eye and asked point blank, Are you a mutant? Hearing the word, Zio choked, accidentally spraying a mouthful of water directly onto Fry. He scrambled to fabricate an excuse, stammering, No, you've got all wrong. Taegu smirked, realizing instantly, holy hell, he might as well have a sign on his forehead. He clamped his hand over his mouth, trying to suppress his shock. A real-life mutant. I'm actually standing in front of one. He looks so disturbingly human. Taegu stole a sideways glance at his companion, a chilling thought taking root. Wait, if he's a mutant, isn't he a walking time bomb? Taegu realized that if his crew showed up unprepared, they'd be slaughtered. He frantically dialed Yang Chun back. The boss slammed his desk, roaring a mutant? Yang Chun's voice turned dangerously sharp. You're telling me he has a mutant heart? The henchmen went dead silent, their eyes locking onto Yang Chun. Taegu hissed into the receiver. Yes, a mutant. I had no idea he was this overpowered. It's a suicide mission. Maybe we should just call off the hit. But Yang Chun replied with a cold, predatory finality. No, that makes him a more valuable prize. We'll take care of it. You just keep him pinned there. Don't let him slip away. Taegu swallowed hard, yielding to the pressure. Yes, sir. I'll make sure he stays put. Zio stood up, stretching his limbs. I am stuffed. Time to hit the road. Taegu panicked, blocking his path. Leaving so soon? Lunch is barely halfway over. Zio offered a simple smile. I need to get back home. Taegu bit his lip, his mind racing for a distraction. I have to stall him until the cavalry arrives. Damn, the weather is way too beautiful for a betrayal like this. Suddenly, a spark of inspiration hit him. Hey, forget the rules. Why don't we cut class and actually see the city? Zio looked bewildered. Cut class? Is that allowed? The unlikely duo soon found themselves standing before the neon glow of Gameland. Zio's jaw dropped at the sight of the flashing cabinets and roaring speakers. Whoa, what kind of place is this? Taegu barked in disbelief. Are you seriously telling me you've never seen an arcade? Zio gave a shy, heartbreakingly honest smile. I didn't even know such a world existed. Zio wandered through the aisles, his eyes wide with wonder. Everything is so vibrant. This is incredible. Zio pressed his face against the glass of a claw machine, his excitement peaking. Look, it's the same plushy hide as on her bag. Taegu stared at him, genuinely stunned. You've really never tried your hand at claw machine? Behind his eyes, a dark question lingered. How much of a hellhole did this guy grow up in? Taegu stepped up, assuming the role of a mentor. Look, just feed the coins in here and take a shot. Zio stammered, his fingers trembling. Wait, just like this? Taegu yelled, just move the stick. Taegu poured his focus into the lesson. Control the joystick, line it up, and drop it. As the metal claw slowly ascended, Zio's eyes widened in pure awe. It actually moved. Against all odds, the claw gripped the plushie tight and dropped it into the chute. Zio retrieved the prize, letting out a jubilant laugh. I finally have one. Now I match height. Zio's joy was infectious, making him beam. This is the best. So this is what it feels like to play. Taegu let out a sinister chuckle. Great, right? He thought, perfect. He's hooked. Stalling him until the boss gets here will be child's play. Leading him deeper into the fun, Taegu pointed toward a neon booth. Tell me you've at least done coin karaoke? Zio blinked. Karaoke? Is that singing? He explained with an encouraging grin. It's a private stage, man. What's your anthem? I'll set the beat. Zio scratched his head, looking utterly out of his element. A song? I don't know anything current. Taegu snapped. Just spell out whatever. You don't need a voice when you're with friends. Zio hesitated, then nodded slowly. The speakers crackled to life, and a simple nursery rhyme melody began to play. Zio poured his soul into the mic, screaming at the top of his lungs, holding Mommy's hand on a picnic. Sweet cotton candy. Taegu buried his face in his hands. Who the hell sings nursery rhymes in a karaoke box? How long are you going to stay this weird? Zio's eyes widened, his heart sinking. Is it bad? It's the only song I actually remember. He lowered the microphone, his shoulders slumping. My mother taught me this before I was torn away from my family at 7. My life hasn't exactly been normal, so I never learned anything else. The words hit Taegu like a physical blow. Torn away at 7. A life that wasn't normal. He froze, his conscience finally clawing at him. What is this guy's story? Are all mutants born in a tragedy? Suddenly, Taegu's eyes welled up with tears. Mommy, God, why am I getting so emotional? He fumbled into his pockets and slammed a wad of cash onto the console, speaking with the authority of an older brother. Your past was a nightmare? Then let's make your future a legend. Follow me. I'm going to show you what life is really about. Zio looked at him, completely puzzled by the sudden passion. They spent hours conquering every game, even the electronic drums. Taegu barked, put some muscle into those sticks. Next was a high-speed rhythm game. He shouted commands, stop using those amateur moves. Zio shot back. I thought this was the point. Taegu flatly replied, not even close. The final challenge was the dance machine. Zio was a disaster on the floor, stumbling through the steps while the onlookers roared with laughter. Taegu gave his brutal, honest assessment. Man, you're a total train wreck on the dance floor. Zio scratched his head, panting. It's way harder than it looks. Outside, the sky had turned into a breathtaking canvas of gold and crimson. The duo finally stepped out of the arcade, exhausted. Taegu checked his watch, panting. I completely lost track of the world. Zio cradled Fry, a radiant smile on his face. He handed Taegu a bottle of water, his voice full of genuine warmth. The arcade was a dream come true. I've never been this happy in my entire life. Taegu puffed his chest out. See? I told you I'd show you a good time. Suddenly, a sharp ringtone shattered the moment. Taegu chuckled, reaching for his phone. Look at that. Who's bugging me at this hour? The moment he answered, a roar of pure fury erupted from the speaker, echoing down the street. You worthless brat. Why the hell didn't you pick up sooner? The blood drained from Taegu's face, his pride replaced by absolute terror. Oh God, young Tun. I was supposed to keep him in place for the ambush. I got so caught up in the fun that I completely forgot the hit. Taegu looked down at the photo booth strip in his hand, his mind a mess of conflict. I even forgot we took these together. Am I actually a moron? He stared at the image of them laughing like brothers, and a heavy, pensive silence settled over him. It was as if a war was being waged deep within his soul. Taegu glanced at Zio, standing amidst the rushing crowd. For a moment, the world felt strangely at peace. Eventually, he arrived at the meeting point where Yang Chun's gang waited like vultures. They snarled, "What took you?" After that, Taegu met the leader and lowered his head in a submissive bow. I'm sorry, boss. It turns out that guy isn't a mutant after all. The gang exploded in a fury, swarming Taegu with menacing glares. Are you playing games with me? He kept stammering apologies. I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Terror was etched into his face, yet his mind remained fixed on Zio. I get it now. He hasn't done a single thing wrong. He flashed back to their time at the arcade. Taegu had asked him quietly, "Is that pup really the only family you have left?" Zio's expression had been veiled in a cloud of profound loneliness. Taegu looked away, moved by the raw vulnerability. Damn, that's genuinely heartbreaking. Then, with tears welling up, Taegu had shared a photo of his own dog, Poppy. I truly understand. My Poppy is 17 years old. I live in fear of the day she leaves me. The two had sat on the bench, two lonely souls comforting one another. Taegu confessed, "Just the thought of losing her makes me want to break down. I almost destroyed my old friends for messing with her." Zio replied softly, "Hey, it's okay now," snapping back to the present. Taegu steeled his resolve. "I'm not doing this for him. I'm doing it for the pup. If something happens to Zio, who will look after the little guy?" Before he could finish the thought, Yangchun's fist whistled through the air toward his face. Then he rocked Taegu with a savage blow that felt like his skull was splitting open. A scream of pure agony tore from his throat. Taegu collapsed onto the concrete, his body convulsing with fear, but his eyes remained strangely, defiantly resolute. Yangchun reached down and yanked him up by the hair. "Listen to me, Taegu." Yangchun leaned in until their noses touched and hissed. "Do I look like a comedian to you? I asked you where the mutant is hiding." Taegu, his face a bruised and swollen mess, dangled from the man's grip in sheer, paralyzing terror. Yangchun pressed his scarred, thuggish face against him. "You think this is a game? Where is that mutant heart breath?" Unaware of the storm, Zio was currently gritting his teeth, his entire soul focused on conquering a rhythm game. Back at the meeting spot, arrogant thugs loomed like vultures, clutching blunt weapons. "Hey, you little rat." Others were even more ominous, hiding behind masks and face covers. "Are you deaf? Answer the boss." Yangchun tightened his iron grip on Taegu's skull. He threatened him with a mocking sneer. "Don't you realize we all mobilized just to bag that freak?" Taegu rubbed his palms together in a desperate, frantic plea. "Boss, I spent the whole day with him. If he were a mutant, I would have felt that aura by now. But there was nothing, not a spark." He even forced a laugh, mocking the memory of Zio's clumsiness. The guy is a complete loser. He literally passed out from exhaustion after 2 rounds of pump it up. I thought he was tough, but it's just because the kids he beat up were total weaklings. Taegu looked up with a mask of feigned confidence, doubling down on the lie. He's a certified, grade A moron. I'm incredibly sorry for wasting your time and making you come all this way. A sharp muscle in Yangchun's jaw twitched with irritation. He scratched his head in a fit of frustration. "So you're telling me I'm standing here for nothing?" Taegu replied in a timid whisper, "Yes, that's the truth." The boss shifted his weight, draping a heavy arm around Taegu while exhaling a thick cloud of cigarette smoke. "Taegu, are you feeling bitter because I hit you?" Yangchun casually lit a fresh cigarette, his eyes piercing right through the facade. "Listen close, you little brat. I can see the lie written all over your pathetic face." He flashed a predatory, devious grin, trying to squeeze the truth out. "Why the sudden change of heart? Give me the real reason you're protecting him." Taegu was too consumed by terror to meet his gaze. "Did you lose your nerve? Think he's too dangerous? I told you he's just human. This world is a meat grinder. I'm trying to let the boys handle this cleanly for everyone's sake." Yangchun spread his arms and let out a hollow, booming chuckle. "Are you actually worried about me? You think we'd lose to a kid? Oh man, you're a riot." Taegu's expression darkened, but he remained stubbornly entrenched in his lie. "No, I'm telling you the truth." The man held up 5 fingers, his eyes gleaming with greed. "Damn it, 500. With an expectant, hungry look, Yangchun made his offer. "I'll be generous. Hand over the mutant, and I'll give you 500 grand. Your boss is being fair, right? I've already got a broker ready to flip him. It'll be handled quietly. No traces, no witnesses." Hearing those words caused Taegu to break into an even colder, more deathly sweat. Isn't that human trafficking? On a nearby phone, a news report flickered, detailing the recent surge in mutant abductions. Rumors claimed the government or shadowy labs were paying fortunes for live specimens. Taegu's hands began to tremble against the dirt. He had dismissed it as an urban legend, never dreaming his own boss was the kind of monster you only see in horror documentaries. Taegu waved his hands frantically, his voice cracking as he tried to de-escalate. "Boss, the guy is a nobody. Please, just trust me." The moment he finished, Yang Chun snapped, burying a heavy boot into his solar plexus. "You worthless piece of trash." Taegu had no time to brace. He was sent tumbling backward like a rag doll. The agonizing impact left him gasping and teary-eyed. God damn it all! Yang Chun was vibrating with pure rage. He roared at his subordinates, raising a clenched fist. Finish him! Break him! In a fit of manic fury, Yang Chun repeatedly stomped on his head. Beat him until he begs to tell the truth. Taegu could do nothing but curl into a ball and endure the onslaught. Please, stop. No more. His body folded like a shrimp under the relentless rain of kicks. He squeezed his eyes shut, using his arms as a final fragile shield for his head. This nightmare was a twisted mirror of Taegu's childhood. Damn it, you're just pathetic, subhuman trash. He lay flat on the floor back then, too, weeping for them to stop. But the bullies only grew more vicious. Just die already, you worthless nerd. That was when a massive Yang Chun and two others had emerged from the shadows to intervene. Hey, who gave you permission to touch our freshmen? You guys tired of living? Terrified by the sheer presence of the upperclassmen, they fled. We're sorry. We're leaving. Yang Chun then turned his gaze to Taegu's broken, trembling form. Hey kid. Even then, he could only cower in fear. Igriegajis. Yang Chun, puffing on a cigarette, had crouched down with a dark laugh. It's me, your boss, kid. Remember that. If you're one of ours from the dojo, you shouldn't let these lowlives trample you. Now, Taegu lay broken once again, taking a savage beating from the very man he once idolized. Back then, the boss seemed like a god, a righteous warrior who stood for the weak. The three of them paused, their heavy breathing syncopated in the quiet air. I used to idolize you guys, because you looked so invincible. Taegu lay broken on the asphalt, his face a swollen mask of gore. Is this brat really going to play martyr until the end? Does he truly know nothing? No way in hell. I've known this kid for years. I can smell a lie before it's even spoken. He crouched low, his voice dripping with venomous mockery. Taegu, you're quite the loyal soldier, aren't you? A real man of principle. His features softened into a predatory mask as he leaned in. But face reality, kid. Selling a specimen to the brokers is a different league entirely. Taegu's bruised face was crushed against the grit, one eye swollen shut. If you try to flip him yourself, you'd be lucky to see 2 or 300, right? Yang Chun's grin twisted into something demonic as he curled a finger. Once your bones are shattered, loyalty will be a luxury you can't afford. Bring out the chains. He slowly wound the heavy metal links around his knuckles. You once said you wanted to live with your head held high, didn't you? Yang Chun slammed a fist in his chained palm, the metal clashing. Stacking a mountain of blood money is the most glorious way to live, kid. He thrust the ironclad fist forward with a sneer. Let's climb to the top of the food chain together, brother. Taegu's face was a map of agony, but he forced the words out. Boss, I'm so sorry. But what came next? That sent the atmospheric pressure in the room to a breaking point. Boss, you don't look glorious or honorable at all right now. You look pathetic. The instant the insult left his lips, terror flooded his eyes. What the hell was I thinking? The veins on Yang Chun's forehead throbbed with homicidal rage. Is that so? I see, Taegu. You ungrateful little bastard. Paralyzed by fear, Taegu reflexively threw his hands up to protect his skull. Boss, I am Soda. My mouth just moved on its own. Yang Chun was beyond reason, cocking his chained arm back for a lethal strike. Go to hell. Suddenly, a slender hand clamped onto his forearm. arresting the punch with impossible strength. Yang Chun spun around, met only by a cold, analytical observation. The gauge of these links is nearly as thick as a finger. Plus, the weld points are jagged and unrefined. It was Zio. Still cradling the puppy, Zio stepped out of the shadows and stood as a wall before Yang Chun. A laceration from a weapon like this would be a nightmare to heal. The gang members instantly recoiled in confusion. Who the hell is this brat? Taegu looked up through the grime and blood. How? Why are you here? Zio crouched down with casual ease. I came to find you. You were taking an eternity to come back. Drowning in panic, Taegu screamed for him to escape. Get out of here. These guys are monsters. Zio simply sat there, his wide eyes reflecting a strange stillness. The truth is, I'm the one who set this up. I called them here to hunt you down, Zio. Taegu's confession spilled out in a torrent of guilt. I told them you were a mutant heart. Zio listened, his expression unreadable. But why? Taegu grit his teeth, tears carving paths through the dust on his cheeks. Because my pride was wounded. I hated that you beat me. I am sorry. But Zio's response was a calm, haunting reassurance. It's all right. Zio maintained his iron grip on Yang Chun's arm while addressing Taegu. Why'd you let them butcher you with something like this? Yang Chun narrowed his eyes, half his face swallowed by the encroaching shadows. Taegu was so gripped by dread that his pupils became fixed points of terror. A lackey crept from the darkness, a baseball bat raised high. He grunted as he swung with full, bone-crushing force. Zio felt the sickening crack at the base of his skull, his eyes rolling back as the shock took hold. A heartbeat later, he collapsed to the pavement, and 3 thugs descended on him like vultures, raining down a barrage of kicks. He couldn't even lift his chin, forced to endure one pulverizing strike after another. The puppy Zio had been protecting erupted into a frantic, high-pitched frenzy of barks. Witnessing the one-sided slaughter, Taegu reached out a trembling hand. No, stop it. You'll kill him. A masked thug crouched over him, bat in hand. So you're the legendary mutant heart? You walk straight into your own way, kid. Zio's fingers clawed at the asphalt, and a crimson pool began to bloom beneath him. His long, slender digits began to spasm, the muscles beneath the skin bulging and shifting. The masked thug squinted, staring down in sudden, mounting confusion. Suddenly, a massive uppercut exploded upward, catching the thug squarely under the chin. The man was launched backward, flipping through the air as Yang Chun narrowly dodged the human projectile. The lackey's face was a mask of distorted agony, his eyes vacant as he slammed into the concrete. Zio's broken body began a slow, mechanical ascent from the dirt. He pulled himself into a standing position, though his head remained bowed in an ominous shadow. Yang Chun's rage reached a fever pitch as he roared at his subordinates. Slaughter him! Zio stood like a statue as the pack closed in, lunging forward to tear him limb from limb. The scene dissolved into a chaotic melee of fists and steel, with heavy blows landing across Zio's frame. Suddenly, Zio unleashed a single devastating punch, sending one of the thugs hurtling out of the pile like a discarded toy. One by one, the others caught a devastating slug to the jaw, sending them spiraling through the air in a crimson spray of blood. His face was a mask of deathly pallor, his gaze an arctic void as he unleashed a relentless storm of bone-crushing blows. Zio utilized his preternatural agility to strike like a viper before anchoring his heels firmly into the concrete. His brow knit into a furrow of pure malice, and the contours of his eyes sharpened into lethal, razor-edged slits. A single, arrogant thug in a mask remained, charging like a madman with a heavy wooden bat. The weapon connected with a sickening thud against Zio's skull, drawing a fresh torrent of blood. But Zio didn't even flinch. He countered with a thunderous straight punch to the ribs that folded the thug like a piece of scrap paper. The thug's body was driven into the pavement with such force that it kicked up a cloud of asphalt and debris. A lackey dressed in black watched the carnage, paralyzed by dread. What kind of freak is this? How can he possess such raw power? The last man, standing in red, groaned as he struggled to find his feet. Is he even a human being? Zio's eyes were swallowed by an ominous shadow as he hoisted the masked thug into the air by his throat with a single hand. Yang Chun's face ignited with a murderous crimson rage as he lunged forward with a jagged, pointed blade. You incompetent cowards! Butcher him with your steel. He drove the blade deep into Zio's back from the blind side. He bleeds just like the rest of us. A single twist, and he'll be meeting the Grim Reaper today. He let out a sadistic cackle, grinding the steel deeper into Zio's spine. How's that feel, you brat? Stings like hell, doesn't it? Zio's dark hair fell over his face as twin rivers of blood leaked from the corners of his mouth. Yang Chun, sensing victory, refused to relent. He ripped the blade out, his face contorted as he prepared for a final, lethal barrage of stabs. Damn it! Just die already, you abomination! In a flash of movement, Zio's bare hand clamped around the razor-sharp edge of the blade. Yang Chun's heart skipped a beat, his cocky expression replaced by a mask of pale, stuttering confusion. No imposible. With his fingers locked around the cold steel, Zio's gaze burned through him. That's quite enough stabbing for one day. He ignored the blade, slicing through his own palm. Zio simply tore the weapon from his grasp with a terrifying, effortless snap. True terror finally set in as Yang Chun began to shake like a leaf. What? What kind of demon are you? What sort of twisted heart allows you to stay this calm after being gutted? Zio went silent, staring down at the blood dripping from his lacerated hand. Me? His eyes erupted into a localized inferno as he lunged, burying the blade into Yang Chun's thigh. You haven't earned the right to know yet. Witnessing the brutality, the remaining lackeys turned tail and ran. I knew we shouldn't have provoked a mutant. I'm out. Wait for me. In an eye blink, a sonic blur tore through the heavy air. A streak of crimson light flashed from Zio's eyes as he began the hunt for Yang Chun's fleeing dogs. His irises turned a terrifying, bloodshot scarlet. Now that you've glimpsed the truth of my identity. A cataclysmic light flickered in Zio's gaze. Not a single soul leaves this alley alive. Outside the chaos, the puppy playfully perked up its ears, letting out a few rhythmic barks into the evening air. Yang Chun, his features mangled and unrecognizable, was being dragged across the dirt by his hair. Beside him, another lackey's face was a shriveled portrait of primal, pathetic fear. Zio stood as a colossus of vengeance, gripping both their heads in his hands. He raised his eyes, and turned his head toward the desperate voice calling his name. Zio. Taegu, a battered mess of bruises, was dragging himself across the ground. Are you all right? You've been impaled. I'm calling a medic right now. Just hold on, Zio. Zio remained eerily composed, tracing the wound on his torso with his fingers. It's fine. I am perfectly okay. Taegu's panic didn't subside. What are you talking about? That wound is fatal. Sweat and grime poured down his swollen, distorted face. Taegu's eyes dropped to the floor in a fit of crushing shame, unable to meet the steady gaze of the man he betrayed. He choked out a barely audible apology. I'm so sorry. Jag was misstänkt. Suddenly, he began striking his own head in a desperate act of self-flagellation. You moron. You absolute piece of trash. You should have just let me rot. I told you to watch your back around people like me. Zio stiffened, caught off guard by the raw honesty of Taegu's next words. I should have sold out anyone else. But who the hell betrays their only friend? Taegu lay sprawled on the cold floor in a state of pathetic ruin. Forgive me. I really did intend to sell you. I wanted to be one of the big shots so badly. His face twisted with self-loathing as he ground his teeth. I thought if I walked with them, I'd finally be someone. I thought it was cool, but I'm just as much of a scumbag as they are. He peeked up through his tears. Zio said nothing, but he reached out, holding a soft, white folded object toward him. Zio dropped to one knee. Taegu, your nose is bleeding everywhere. Use this to clean yourself up. Taegu reached out with trembling fingers. You're really handing me this to wipe the blood? Zio nodded firmly. Yeah, But the moment he looked at the cloth, Taegu froze. Wait a second. Is this a puppy pee pad? You little brat. Taegu sat up, dabbing at the blood with the pad, just as Zio instructed. I'll take what I can get before someone starts hitting me again. Zio suddenly broke the silence. Earlier, you said you lost the right to be my friend. His face softened into a warm, genuine smile. But it seems I wasn't the only one who considered us friends in the first place. So, as far as I'm concerned, we're even. Taegu looked up in a state of total disbelief. He was so overwhelmed that his face flushed a deep red, and fresh tears finally spilled over. Taegu broke down into a fit of hysterical sobbing and lunged forward, locking Zio in a desperate, suffocating embrace. Zio stood frozen, forced to endure the bone-crushing hug. I'm so incredibly sorry. You're truly the best person I've ever known.